Buddy. I am sitting in my driveway here in Billings, Montana, and right now there is a ground stop on our airport.
To me, this is new and this is brazen. What we at least saw with that first Chinese balloon. Again, I think there's still uncertainty about what those other three objects were. But hey, nations spy on each other. Balloons have been used for years to collect weather information, to do research. What's particularly brazen about what we've seen over the last week is that first balloon. It's a pretty big balloon, 200 feet, 20 stories tall, equipment underneath it that's been reported to be the size of 2 to 3 buses. That's hard not to miss. And when it's being flown directly over the American heartland and violating sovereign airspace, that's a big deal. I also wonder what the Chinese are trying to do here. Not just collect intelligence information near our sensitive military sites, but are they testing our response? Are they testing our military operational response? Are they testing our political response? In a crisis or a conflict, would they use balloons? Would they launch a barrage of balloons and force us to figure out, do we target those and expend precious munitions on those, or do we focus on the fight in the Indo-Pacific? We have to do both, but man, that's a great way to get us to expend precious munitions. So what I suspect is happening is our intelligence community, working with the Department of Defense, as they're learning more about these objects, they're able to go back through, likely through software modifications, writing new algorithms to extract out from all of that data that is being collected. They're able to extract out information that was probably left on the cutting room floor that may be helpful to better understanding what some of these objects are. I look at what they're doing on the balloon front as part of a much broader, aggressive campaign to steal our technology, erode our technical and military advantage.
You usually see this progressing towards, faster aircraft, higher flying aircraft, more technologically advanced aircraft. And now it seems like going towards doing this with balloons is a little bit of an interesting way to take the technology. Almost, I wouldn't say going back, because who knows what the sophistication of what these things may or may not be carrying. But, to use a balloon for something like this seems like an older technology, right? We don't think of that as cutting edge, but in a way it is in its own way. And I think that's really interesting. There's some really fascinating stories about this kind of aerial reconnaissance aspect in the Cold War when you're talking about the Soviet Union, looking at the US and vice versa. The US was doing all kinds of wacky things like spoofing electronic signals to see if the Soviets would lock on to us, and if they did, how, what types of signals were they using, and can we intercept those signals? And, they would fly. This is a big part. I mentioned drones in Vietnam earlier. A big part of what drones were doing was not just taking pictures. They were doing that too, but they would fly into an enemy radar, purposely get it to lock onto them so they could see, how good do we have to fly? How detectable does our aircraft have to be for the Soviet defenses to be able to see us? They could figure out, like, okay, here's how good the Soviet defenses are, and we can incorporate that into designing new aircraft. And that's how you get something like the stealth fighter in the 80s and 90s. That came out of some of that research, right? Where they're figuring out, how did the Soviet air defenses work? And we've been testing them for years, and we figured this out, and we can design a new aircraft to try to do something like that. I'm not going to speculate about what China's doing, but the history of trying to figure out what the other side's capabilities are, that's something militaries have always done throughout time.